welcome to another episode of Black in the Maritimes. I'm Fidel.
I'm Hillary.
And I'm Clinton.
And we got Hillary with glasses. We never seen you in this podcast with glasses.
Hillary with glasses, no makeup, and very tired from partying with Carl Wolf. I don't recommend 3 parties in 1 week, but this is why I moved back to Toronto. So
it
I
fits.
guess it's fine.
It fits the whole mantra of how Hillary's getting old. 3 parties in a week. You can't handle it. Put on the glasses to do the show so you can see the screen.
Okay,
it happens.
I don't think I can still see the screen. I feel like there's still 2 of you anyway. I slept till 6 p.m. But that's life. Happy to be here.
That's what happens when you're in your 20s. So definitely that's the good thing about it.
Yeah.
I cannot do that as much anymore. All right, so we're gonna start with quite a topic that it's been around for weeks, and because we had guests and we had previously shows, we didn't talk about it, but it's been a lot of people in our Facebook page messaged us and told us that we need to talk about it. We ourselves talked about it a couple of times.
Many times.
Yeah, many times we talked about it to see what would the best. In fact, I think we got like way too much information. Personally, I got way much information that I kind of wanted. But in Moncton, this was in November. Or early October, I think it was.
It happened in January.
January?
But I guess the story really started circulating in middle of November.
Mid-November, yeah.
Or mid-November,
in January, there was this Black girl in her 20s, I would say early 20s. There was a disturbance call at her place, and she was heavily intoxicated. The police went in, and apparently the person started fighting with the cop. That's what this is allegedly what the Telegraph Journal says. So we're talking about this on the Telegraph Journal, and there's what we know about Facebook, which is what the post on Facebook that kind of got into us. So there was a disturbance call. The policeman got there. Apparently the girl started swinging at the policeman. The policeman tried to contain her with some type of headlock or some type of maneuver. That apparently the thing got altercated. And, what we see from the pictures of this girl is that she got bruised. She has heavily bruised with that. She got arrested, and she basically in November got the trial, and she pleaded guilty for apparently. The Telegraph Journal says that she was trying to call her boyfriend and she got angry about that. That's what the newspaper says. So that's an escape, like in a condense of the story. There's a little bit more to it, but I feel like we had to kind of dig in a little bit more to see, because I personally, there was once the Facebook post started going, there was a couple of things that didn't add up. Now, in this Facebook post, if you can find it, you see that the girl has the bruises, and there's like she's in the police station. That's what we can say, that she's in the police station. I'm not sure how those images got there. There's a picture of the officer as well, and they are saying that that this was because she was a Black girl, police brutality. For me, the thing that didn't kind of add up is that there wasn't any names. There wasn't the name of the officer, and there wasn't the name of the person. So that for me kind of was a red flag. I was like, something's up here. Let me just try to research. Hillary came up with the article in the Telegraph Journal. We read it. We had a couple of discussions there. I actually got in contact with somebody close to that person and to kind of get the full story, and I got a bit more of the story. But the question here, and I guess we all have different opinions about it. Let's start with Hillary. Hillary, you have a personal opinion about this. So what's your take?
Well, I guess I'll also share that like the person, one of the people who reached out to us sort of, I think what encapsulates the problem more is it's a Black French speaking man of the same community who essentially was talking about the situation from what they had read on Facebook and saying in French that they felt that they shouldn't, while living in Moncton, be fearing for their life. And they made a Facebook Live and then also sent it to us. So I feel like that's okay to share. And my opinion as like a woman who has been that age, who has maybe been as intoxicated as this person is reported being, I don't know that at any point that's a correct amount of force to be using on somebody. I know we've heard like different reports about like whether like this person was easily subdued or not, if there was a struggle or not. And I sort of think that that's besides the point to have bruises on somebody's face, because I don't know why you're trying to subdue someone by hitting them in the face. And if that is any part of the truth, then I think that that's not okay. But I also think if people thought that this person was unwell, we should have other people to call than the police, because as we've seen before with Chantal Moore and in other cases, the cops don't help when there's a mental wellness check. They do more harm than good, because I don't know that they are properly trained to do that or to approach people in as empathetic as a way that they might need. So that's my take. I just feel like it seems like something like shady went down. I just don't like how it seems like this person was essentially manhandled to get to the police station, and that seems to me extremely unfortunate. I think that there's better ways to approach somebody, even if they're in the wrong and they've committed a crime. I've committed crimes. I didn't end up hit in the face when people, you know, approached me and handled the situation. And that's where I have a problem with the whole ordeal.
Clinton, what's your take on it?
Well, we all read the story in the Times and transcript. And, you know, I think we all feel that in a lot of news stories that we hear from other cities, sometimes the media doesn't always portray the stories completely accurate. And I think one of the big complaints is the way the story was twisted to make the person feel seem like a psychotic, violent offender. So there definitely was an incident that took place. And I will say that I believe that if someone breaks the law and is caught, there should be, in most cases, some sort of a charge applied or a penalty to be faced. However, I do think that the charge needs to be equally distributed among people regardless of their culture, race, or background. We did hear stories of a person being intoxicated, and that may very well be true. But I would say that her face was more than just a little bit bruised up. I would say that it did appear to be beaten. Some of those injuries may have been a result of not from the police officer, but other ones likely could have been. From what I've been told, the person is a very small person. And while it probably is harder to subdue a grown adult than a lot of people imagine, it seems like there was some violence that took place. In an event where someone is arrested like that, I also wonder why the media, you know, made such a, it was like, people are arrested every day. Usually like big crime is reported, but people are arrested on St. George Street every day, downtown, for causing disturbances, for yelling at police officers. I wonder why this made the news. I feel like it was because it was a Black person and the intent was to maybe partially shame and put fear in Black people. I also fear that putting that kind of fear by promoting that in the news solidifies certain people's negative stereotypes about Black people. I also think it kind of broadens the divide between the trust that should be there in a good society between police and Black people. So I didn't really see the point of that. I've heard reports that while the person pleaded guilty, that they didn't afterwards agree with that, and that they're now coming out and saying that things didn't go down exactly how it was indicated. And in fact, she was heavily pressured by her lawyer to plead guilty so that because she was told there was no way she would be able to get a fair trial or have a just accounting for what happened. So just to plead guilty and shut up and accept the penalty and move on. So it's hard to say. None of us were there, but just because she pleaded guilty, we do know that quite often in history, Black people have been persuaded to plead guilty out of a fear that they would get a worse punishment if they pleaded not guilty and had to go through trial. And I do fear that this is one of those cases. In Nova Scotia, they recently passed a law that said that, you know, when certain people of certain backgrounds are being tried, the past has to be taken into consideration. Now, this is common knowledge, the article did state that this person was a refugee from a war-torn country who was probably suffering extreme trauma and extreme PTSD, and I believe lost her father as a child, I believe violently. I don't quote me if I'm wrong, and is now living in Canada. Um, Cases like this, I understand that in not all cases, when a police officer is called, um, are they going to know what they're walking into? If there was a call for a mental health check, I think we've all agreed already that there should be a mental health professional dispatched with the police officer. In a case like this, where I don't think the call came from inside the house, but just a disturbance call was made, I think a big lesson that continues to need to be learned from situations like this is as soon as an officer gets on the scene, and uh, I wish we're trained to maybe determine what is just a drunken rage or a domestic dispute versus what may be PTSD or a mental health issue. I think every station should have, quite often multiple police units will show up to a disturbance. So I think if a police officer got there really quickly, made an assessment that, the situation seemed like it required additional expertise, that a mental health professional could be on call to be called out there to come into the house and try to, if the person needed to be arrested, that's fine, but at least make an attempt to de-escalate the situation so that the person could be taken into custody without violent methods being taken. Um, this story, my last thought is this story really kind of parallels what we heard about Chantel Moore up north, and this woman is still alive, and that is fantastic. However, had this woman, she had a cell phone in her hand, sure. Had she picked up a glass, a butter knife, something else, I fear that this woman's life may have ended that night. And those are real issues that need to be continued to be discussed all across the country, is that when is it okay for just a police officer to be on scene, and when do they need to call in additional help to, yes, potentially arrest someone, but do it in a less violent way.
I personally will say that, I mean, definitely. I'm not sure if we said that she hit the officer. Hitting an officer is never a good idea. It's like never a good idea to swing at an officer, at a police officer. So I'll take the first thing on that. I do
I
agree that.
agree. Yeah, sorry. I want to hear your thought. I agree. Like, that's what I was saying when I started. If someone breaks the law, if someone tries to punch a police officer, I think they should be arrested, and I think they should go to court, and I think there should be a punishment for that.
Yeah, I
Sure.
definitely think that that was a bad idea. That no, you never should do that. And unfortunately, this lady did commit a crime. Now I do agree that there needs to be better systems when it comes to police maneuvering. Definitely, I think that's something that I don't think us, but everybody has been saying this, like mental health issues and different things. I think the cops get called for way too many things that they're not qualified for. Like a noise disturbance, I don't really see why a police officer will be gets called on that. I don't see why a police officer gets called on a jaywalking. You could, like, for example, there's places in like the UK that there's cops that don't have guns, right? They have batons for things like that, right? Like you could not be heavily armed. I still think that cops could shoot something like rubber bullets. They should have things that just to calm the situation out. Because again, you don't. Again, it's hard to say. A cop doesn't know what they're getting into. And also there are other maneuvers that I feel like they should get. I My concern at this point, and this is the thing that I would say, my concern is that people of color get into this rabbit hole of a system once they commit a crime. Once you commit a crime, and I don't know if you guys know what how the Canadian system is. It's kind of similar to the American system. Once you commit a crime or a felony, depending, fortunately for this girl, she'll be able to clean this out within a year. It's she's gonna get this cleaned out, and that's not gonna ruin her life. Now, uh, if she gets in this rabbit hole of a system, then she gets into what's felonies and records and stuff like that, and then it comes down you can't get a job, you can't go to a country, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it just becomes something that nobody wants to their lives, and especially for a young person. I will say, as a person of color in New Brunswick, I do encourage other people of color to take care of your significant other or take care of the other person, just because the fact that the system is not made for people of color. The system's really not made for us. The system is not an advantage to you. And definitely when you get into this rabbit hole of criminal activity or anything that's going on felony, it goes really, really bad, especially when you're a person of color, right? If you look at the system of the jails are more filled. It's like 90, 80% indigenous and black people of color and 10% white, which if you look at the population is heavily disproportionate. Uh, I do feel that this person needs all the help they can get. I feel like the system needs to help her and the system won't do it. It definitely won't help her to get where she needs to be. My concern is that hopefully this person does not get into this rabbit hole of having problems with the law, because I feel like the law is not going to be uh, good to this person. It's just not going to. It's not going to be for people of color. Should it be that way? Of course not. That's why we have this podcast, right? But we definitely want to encourage people to to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you understand that the system as a person of color, uh, once it changes, who knows when that's going to be, and hopefully it does sooner than later. We can get to a place that it's not that way, but right now the reality is that it is, and we need to make sure that people that have these type of issues can get the help that they need. So